Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Wild Knights podcast.
Hosted by a Knights fan.
And a Wild fan.
And we are still covering the weird and wacky and wonderful news around the NHL. And this time it will probably take on less of a Russian flavor compared to last episode where we spent 90% of the time talking about Russia or Russians. This time we have a lot of NHL general news, including the culmination of a story that we talked about on our last episode, which made me very mad. And now I'm very happy because we wound up actually getting this one wrong.
Okay, to be fair, we didn't get it wrong. We just...
All the signs pointed in one direction.
The story was not finished when we talked about it last time.
All the signs pointed that one thing was going to happen. The logic said one thing was going to happen. And then that thing didn't happen.
I mean, well, let's get into it, right?
Well, here's the tagline. The Edmonton Oilers failed to match the offer sheets for Holloway and Broberg. They're now members of the St. Louis Blues. Despite making the moves to where mathematically they could keep all those players and match the offer sheets and not go over the cap, they chose not to. So that was
surprising.
I was convinced that they were going to match the offer sheets after they traded away Ceci and his $3.25 million cap hit.
Well, and on top of it, they've traded away half their defense.
Yeah, it's like half their playoff
What,
defense.
3 out of 7?
3 out of 7, yeah.
Yeah.
3 out of the 7 players that
That's
played
crazy.
on the back end are now members of other teams.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I am very shocked that they didn't match these offer sheets. The Oilers invested a lot of time and effort into both of these players, and they let them walk for free, like free 99.
It's just, all I got to say is, what are the Oilers doing?
I don't know. They think they have something, obviously, but
the season's rapidly approaching.
Yeah, and they're pretty much set.
They seem like they're not really making the moves that they need to make.
Yeah, I mean, what they have is now a lot of cap space. They've granted themselves the ability to spend some money during their regular season into the deadline.
I mean, there's only 4 players though that are like free agents that are notable.
Yeah,
right.
So it's going to be a lot of hurry up and wait, and this really hits at a bigger issue of this is the last year they're guaranteed to have Leon Draisaitl on their team, and so Edmonton this offseason, everybody knows Edmonton's biggest problem, and you can say what you want to say about it because they made it all the way to the final last year and were 1 goal away from winning the Stanley Cup. They still have glaring problems with defense. And so now they've lost one of their stalwarts on the back end in Cody Ceci, who that's okay. He wasn't that good anyway for the Oilers. But to lose Holloway and Broberg, that one hurts.
That's got to hurt, especially because they were, fairly young defensemen too.
Young, very.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think the Blues GM is thinking right now?
I think he's feeling pretty happy. He gave what has to be probably the second hardest quote of the week to come out of the hockey world, with the hardest quote coming up later in this episode. For context, this is only the second and third offer sheets not to be matched in the last 16 years. The first of those was Jesperi Kotkaniemi when he was offer sheeted out of Montreal in retaliation for the either Andrei Svechnikov or Sebastian Aho offer sheet that Montreal tried to do to Carolina the year before. So the offer sheet's super uncommon, and apparently there's like an unwritten rule against GMs not offer sheeting each other's restricted free agents because people worry it opens the floodgates and it may be more used. The Blues GM,
I don't get that argument though.
I don't get it either.
Because again, I always say this, but at the end of the day, this is a business.
Yeah, but hockey's...
These are professional players.
Yeah, but hockey's got a lot of unwritten rules. Morgan Riley got suspended 5 games last year because somebody broke an unwritten rule and slap shot the puck into an empty net. I'm looking at you, Ridley Grigg.
I'm not saying that hockey doesn't have unwritten rules, and everything has unwritten rules and procedures and all of that stuff. But the thing that I'm saying, though, is that if they don't want anyone using this, why the fuck are they still offering it?
I mean,
excuse the pun.
You're not wrong, but
if the tool is there, if they don't want anyone to use it, don't offer it.
I mean, it can create some interesting situations. Again, this is the Blues GM Doug Armstrong had this to say when asked about the offer sheets. Quote, "If there's a GM code not to offer sheet, nobody emailed it to me. I was reported that I would have not done this to Ken Holland, the former Oilers GM, and that's just not true. I'd do it to my mother if she was managing the Oilers.
I mean, obviously he wanted something the Oilers had.
He wanted two somethings the Oilers had,
and
obviously.
And he made a big swing, and it happened to work out for the Blues.
Oh, yeah. He swung for the fences, and he happened to connect on a fastball up and in, and that ball is currently flying out to left field.
I guess my question, too, is this the Blues GM, like, solely working on his own, or do you think, like, the new coach, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, is also in on this?
I mean, did Evason have a thing for young defensemen when he was in Minnesota?
You know what? I didn't pay attention that closely because Bill Guerin has a pretty tight rein on who comes and who goes.
Good point. Maybe it is the coach saying, hey, I have a need. Go fill the need. But this is also probably a case of taking the best available and taking advantage of an Oilers team, which despite being in the Cup final last year, is still a bit of a mess organizationally.
Well, I mean, they also fired their coach, like 10 games into the season or something?
Like 20, but they lost to the Sharks. They lost to the Sharks. They were the Sharks' second win of the year.
Oh, when you lose to the Sharks, at least last year, Sharks team, you know.
Yeah, early last year, Sharks team.
You know you are not doing well.
This was around the time the Sharks lost back-to-back games, giving up 10 goals in each.
Ouch.
Yeah, and it was a nationally televised game, and for the week and a half leading up to it, there was a world where it could have been the Sharks' opportunity to get their first win of the year. Unfortunately, they won the night before. Mm-hmm. And I don't really watch a lot of Oilers games by choice, and I really don't watch a lot of Sharks games by choice.
That's
but
fair.
You best believe I popped popcorn. I made nachos. I threw a party when I watched that game. Like, it was one of the few out-of-market, out-of-Vegas games that I actually watched last year.
Besides the Wild games that I made you watch.
Aside from that. This was early in the year. So this was before I started paying attention to the rest of the NHL when the Knights, imploded over the holidays.
Well, I mean, you were so happy that your precious Knights went 13-0, and then they finally lost.
They set the record for the longest win streak to start a year by a reigning Cup champion, and I hope that record's never beaten because it's like 10 games.
You do realize that you said reigning Cup champion, so it doesn't really apply.
They were, though.
Yeah, but
it's a record. Just let me have my record. I don't get many of them. The only record I have to hold over you is that PWHL Minnesota has more banners than the Minnesota Wild do.
And that's fine because there's only 6 teams in the entire league right now of PWHL.
They've existed for 1 year.
Yeah, and they had a 1-6 chance of winning. The Wild have a 1 in what? Not even.
Well, it was 1 in 28 when they came in, and now it's 1 in 32.
It's not even a 1 in 32 though, because the way you get seeded. And injuries and other things. So really, it's not a 1 in 32. It's probably a 1 in 60 something at the best case scenario.
There's a reason the Stanley Cup is considered the hardest trophy in professional sports to win. So
I mean, and the thing is too, you got to be the right teams. You got to be on at the right times, and part of it's luck and part of it's talent.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the real thing is, does these recent moves by the Oilers, whether it be the offer sheet or the trade, does this affect their odds of being a competitor in the Western Conference next year? Because again, this hits at one of their weakest areas. I
don't know how to answer that because it's hard to speculate, right? Because we don't know team dynamics. We don't know if they've moved, their forwards around. We don't really know who they have or who they plan to pull up from farm. Like, we don't know those things.
Right.
So, or someone could get hurt early in the season. There's so many variables that I think the Oilers could be competitive again this year.
Well, they've got the 2 best players in the world on their team.
Who are those people?
McDavid and Draisaitl. Jesus McHockey.
I know how you feel about Connor McDavid.
Oh, I have so many feelings about that guy.
Yeah,
but that's not important.
No, it's not. And I think you've mentioned it in previous episodes, so I don't think we have to revisit it.
No, we'll just wait for him to do something quote unquote highlight worthy when the season starts in a month.
Just like Connor Bedard.
Oh, not the Bedard.
Moving on.
Anyway, so we're going to move out of oil country. We're going to stay in the Pacific Division, though, which is amazing. The Seattle Kraken are doing things. They're making waves. In a move
making waves seems really, really strong wording. But anyway, go on.
In a move that surprises literally nobody, they have signed one of their star players, Matty Beniers, to a 7-year, $7.14 million extension.
Holy hell.
That's a lot of money for a player who massively regressed last year. Beniers, really good rookie season. Really good rookie season. Pretty good second season when he helped the Kraken go to the playoffs. And then last year he fell off a cliff.
I mean, maybe he just had a bad year. Who knows?
True, but to pay him $7.14 million until 2031, like you're paying him for basically his entire prime, and you're not entirely sure what his prime is.
I mean, but if he's a core person of Seattle, like...
Well, I mean, this kind of goes to a bigger theme for Seattle. They've thrown a lot of money around this summer. That being like I did some looking on Puckpedia, and it's taking me some time to get used to Puckpedia now that Cap Friendly is, dead.
R.I.P. Cap Friendly.
RIP Cap Friendly. You will be missed, Cap Friendly. This contract extension makes Matty Beniers tied for the second highest paid player on the Kraken. Their highest paid player is Vince Dunn. He makes $7.35 million a year. Beniers now makes the same as Brandon Montour, who just won the Stanley Cup with the Panthers. And was recently signed as a free agent over the summer. And in case you're wondering, my personal favorite contract that the Kraken have signed this summer is that of former Golden Knight Chandler Stevenson, who's the fourth highest paid player on the team, making $6.25 million.
That's a lot of money for all of those players.
Yeah, so let's do 7, 14,
27.
21, 20. Yeah, 20. That's about a quarter of their cap. Locked up in those four players.
I mean, that's how it usually goes, though, at this point.
Yeah, like the Kraken,
you shell out money for key players, and then you just build a team around them.
True.
I don't know if that's a winning strategy per se, but it's a strategy. That's what I'll say.
It's the Kraken. Like, they've got a very interesting roster. They've got a lot of pieces that could be interesting.
It just seems like they haven't really been able to put it together. Like, they have all the puzzle pieces. They just don't know how they all fit.
Yeah, I mean, they made the playoffs 2 years ago. They got out of the first round 2 years ago. They beat the reigning champs in Colorado, which was good. They right now, as it stands, the Kraken have exactly like $3 and a ham sandwich's worth of cap space. I think I'm actually on Puckpedia right now. Their projected cap space is $4,286 total.
Okay.
So I don't even think they could refill their printers with their cap space if they all ran out of toner at the same time. But yeah, like they're very they have a very interesting cap situation. I mean, they've got a lot of pieces. Andre Burakovsky is really, really good. Jaden Schwartz is good. Yanni Gourde is good. Brandon Tanev looks like he's been arrested for things all the time. His player profile, like his profile picture, is amazing. Jordan Eberle is good. Shane Wright is still riding out his rookie entry-level contract. He's going to be pretty good. I mean, the Kraken have a lot of good players on their roster. I have a hard time rooting for the Kraken just because they're in the Pacific Division. But at the same time, they have a player who I've met personally. So let's rewind the clock about 11 years.
And here's one of Ian's hockey stories.
We're going to rewind the clock about 11 years. I'm 12. Mm-hmm. I'm playing Pee Wee hockey in Austin, Texas. And that city may not mean anything to the hockey world, but about 20 minutes northwest of where I played my junior hockey is the Cedar Park Center, now called the HEB Center at Cedar Park, home of the Dallas Stars affiliate Texas Stars in the AHL. Around this time, a lot of current NHLers for Dallas and for other teams in the NHL are playing in Cedar Park Center. One of my personal favorite players, Riley Smith, was there. Jamie Benn, the current captain of the Dallas Stars, was there. Foxa, Justin Dowling, goaltender Jack Campbell, who I have his autograph is on the glove that I wore as a little kid. I've had sitting in my closet somewhere. I've always rooted for him. There's a reason I wanted him to come to Vegas this year to fill our backup problem, and instead I get Ilya fucking Samsonov.
Okay, well, you guys are probably better off for it.
We are probably better off for it, but it would have been nice because he's a good guy. He's a good locker room guy. And then
whatever.
And then there's just a lot of NHLers that went through the Dallas organization around the time. The Texas Stars had a thing where they would occasionally send some players to our practice because the rink we played at was affiliated with the Texas Junior Stars, which is a elite travel team that I never got to play on, but I knew a lot of people who played on it. My brother was a part of it when he was a squirt and a peewee. But one of the perks of that was the Texas Stars would send some players to hang out at practice and do some teaching. And one of those days was a day where they sent Jack Campbell. That's where I got his autograph. I got basically a one-on-one masterclass with him, and current Seattle Kraken defenseman Jamie Alexiak. And so the reason I bring up the story is he's got a wicked slap shot, and I know he's got a wicked slap shot because me, at the ripe old age of 12, with no fear and no sense of permanence yet, said, "Hey, Jamie, hit me with a slap shot as hard as you can." And he did. And
Did it hurt?
It pushed me back into the net a little bit. I caught it, and my hand hurt. But no, it was every time I watch Seattle play, I'm reminded of those moments. Just like every time I come across a Texas Star player who I got to see play in the AHL and got to skate on the same ice as, it's one of those moments where it's like, oh, this is kind of interesting. But I'm just looking at the Seattle D-core. They're going to be pretty good, especially with adding Montour. I just think they lack upfront scoring right now. So this does bring us to come back off of my weird tangent.
Yeah, thank you.
Does locking down Beniers for the future help Seattle become a playoff team? Maybe not this year, but in the future.
We'll see how he develops. It's kind of like the Brock Faber
Right.
thing is we'll see how they develop and we'll see how they do in the next season or two. Because obviously when it comes to hockey, like you have players that are, coming in very fresh, learning the space, kind of get into start their prime.
Right.
Like, start their kind of the incline.
Yeah.
And then they hit a hump and they start to decline at some point.
Right.
So it's really we're really going to need to look at how he does in probably years 2 through 5 of the contract to really have an actual opinion on it.
So is Seattle a playoff team this year? I mean, because they're out the Pacific, so that's a pretty stacked division.
I mean, I don't think they are.
Well, let's look at the Pacific Division for a second.
I still don't think they are, even without looking at them, because I think that when they've been making moves this year and what they've acquired 3 really decent, like really good players, or at least decent players,
good enough
for a decent
players.
amount of money, and they're locked in for a good amount of years. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to gel well, or they're going to have some time to figure it out. And I think this year they might kind of suck.
Right.
And they might kind of pull what they did last year. I think maybe next year might be a better year for them.
I mean, do you think they could maybe get a backdoor wild card spot? Because, let's be honest, the Pacific Division is really top heavy.
Anyone can get a backdoor spot. Let's be real here.
Yeah, like the Wild.
You're not wrong. But I mean, looking at Nashville last year, right?
Yeah.
Like they weren't really
Good.
They weren't good until they went on their streak.
Well, that's what they get for not seeing you two.
That's my point, is that they went on their streak.
Right.
And they stayed on it.
Yeah.
And they were able to cinch up the wild card spot with a very, very top heavy division.
Well, the Central was okay last year.
But it was really top heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
you had a lot of teams fighting for that wild card spot for a while.
Tell me about it. I mean, now that I think about it, I actually think there is a reasonable pathway for Seattle to finish 4th in the Pacific.
I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely.
Because it's probably fair to assume that the top half of the Pacific is going to be some combination of Edmonton, Vegas, and Vancouver.
Yeah, I'd say.
If maybe LA is in there with Seattle for a fight in 4th.
If there's a repeat from last season,
yeah,
I could see those 3 being at the top of the Pacific Division. Yes.
Yeah. Just like the Central Division is still an unknown quantity. Even with Nashville making those moves, Minnesota's made some moves. Dallas has made some interesting
you say
choices.
Minnesota made some moves. I mean, we made a lot of moves draft day.
You got Faber locked up for basically
that
ever.
doesn't start though until next year.
Yeah, but it takes the doubt out of it, because you want to avoid what's happening in Edmonton. They don't know if Draisaitl is going to stick around for the future, which means they don't know if McDavid's going to stick around for the future.
Yeah, I know. And But was there any doubt in our minds that Faber was going to sign again?
Oh, not a chance.
That's my point. So,
Not a single doubt.
that doesn't really change anything for me.
It's a pure peace of mind thing, though.
Yeah, but that doesn't change anything for me. Because, I mean, also we signed 13-year deals to fucking Parisi and Suter.
It's okay. It's okay.
And we're still paying that shit off.
One more year.
One more year, but still, we've been saying one more year for 2 or 3 years now.
Hey, you made the playoffs a bunch even with it.
I know, which watch out for the Wild when that cap finally comes off. Jeez.
Eventually, you guys are going to win a division for the first time. Eventually, it's going to happen.
I think I don't know if I really care about winning division. I care about getting further than round 1 of the playoffs.
Well, you and the Toronto Maple Leafs can have that conversation since they've only done it once since 2004.
No, I know.
So
we've done it more recently than them.
You guys are
not much.
You guys are like the tagline to a Farmers Insurance commercial. You know a thing or two because you've seen a thing or two.
It's just a thing with Minnesota sports in general.
No kidding.
Like, it seems like no matter what it is, we can never seem to get our feet under us for anything.
Well, the Wild are okay.
The Wild have been reliable.
Timberwolves got to the conference final last year and then ran into a better team.
No, they just didn't play.
Well, that too. The Vikings are the Vikings, yeah.
It seems like anytime we make a good move, we end up with a hurt quarterback.
Or Herschel Walker.
Hurt quarterback.
Or a hurt quarterback, yeah.
Like Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah, exactly. I just see what happened.
Every time there's a good opportunity, you have Teddy Bridgewater or you have Blair Walsh and the missed kick at the U of M.
Okay, it see's like there's a freaking curse following around the Minnesota Vikings with kickers.
Something about kickers.
They're the heart of football because they have to make those field goals and they have to make those extra points.
Yeah,
because that can make or break a game.
Yeah.
But my God, it's heart-wrenching.
So it goes without saying, I will not be taking the Vikings kicker in our fantasy draft next week, will I?
God, no, I would not.
I might take it just to see what everybody reacts like.
No one's really going to care in our fantasy draft.
Speaking of, should we do fantasy hockey?
I would love that.
Just to screw around so we can give the podcast listeners something to get behind.
I mean, I would love that, honestly, but I don't know how many people would be into it.
I'll wrangle some people.
Cool.
I know a few people who'd be down to do it. I'll do some wrangling.
I've actually never done fantasy hockey. I've done fantasy football. I've never done fantasy hockey.
Yeah, I've always been meaning to do fantasy hockey. I've only done fantasy football twice. I've come in dead last once, which was,
I came in third in my last fantasy football league, and I didn't really care that much.
Well, try and stay out of dead last this year.
I will.
But anyway, we've gotten a little sidetracked, and we
on.
We can't. I mean, we forgot one Minnesota sport and their struggles, and it's the Twins. And we were there when they finally won a playoff game, and first time in like 20 years.
We're just gonna skip over the Twins because they're doing at least decent. And knock on wood, I do not want to cause them any issues, so we are not going to talk about them. Moving on.
All right, we'll move on to one of 3 stories involving the same godforsaken organization.
The Flyers are just a mess right now, man.
You know what? I have a thought of. I think as a kid, I wanted a orange shag carpeting in my bedroom.
Of course you did.
And now it would have just looked like I killed and skinned Gritty and put him on my floor like some weird hunting trophy.
Oh,
One of my favorite pastimes is seeing people comment on like orange fluffy things saying, oh, somebody got Gritty. Like an old car from the 80s with a carpet plush interior that's done in orange. Somebody killed Gritty and upholstered their car.
Anyways.
Unfortunately, this doesn't have to do with Gritty getting killed and skinned alive or assaulting fans. It has to deal with some weird contract shit. And
this was weird, man.
Amazingly, we actually are probably some of the more right people to talk about this.
Yeah.
Which is wacky.
Reminder that we are both law students.
And while we don't know anything about sports law, nor are we agents, we understand the basic ins and outs of the way contracts work and the terminology that the Philadelphia Flyers used in their press release. Because we were driving in the car to pick up some stuff for our own personal hockey adventures. More to come on that later. The Philadelphia Flyers put out a news update, which reads in direct quotes, the Philadelphia Flyers have placed forward Ryan Johansson on unconditional waivers today for the purpose of terminating his contract due to a material breach. The Flyers will have no further comment at this time.
So basically,
let's break this down for a second. Material breach. That's not usually why people have their contracts put on waivers for the purpose of termination. Usually it's just because they suck.
Yeah.
And so in to sum up the legalese of what a material breach is, there are express terms in a contract. And if you break one of those express terms, that's a material breach, and it gives the party that had the breach perpetrated against grounds to terminate the contract.
Yeah. Also, material breach usually is a breach so severe that you end up canceling the contract.
And that is what the Flyers are trying to do here by putting him on waivers for the purpose of terminating his deal.
But wait, it gets more interesting.
So the team has cited the material breach as the grounds for the contract. So we did some digging. And the agency that represents him have made a statement, and we'll come to that statement in a little bit. So we did some digging. Yep. Ryan Johansson was traded from Nashville to Colorado at the beginning of last year. He was a good player in Nashville. He was an integral piece of their cup run when they got absolutely creamed by the Penguins. I think it was in 2018. 2017, the second of their two cups in a row.
Don't look at me because I have no idea.
And so he was traded. He played okay last season. Not great. He played okay for 63 games.
Average player.
Before he was set to play his 64th game of the year, he was traded to the Flyers. And this was at the deadline. And suddenly, out of nowhere, he couldn't play hockey anymore.
Which makes me think, too, like, did Colorado trade him because he was hurt?
That is a possibility. Or you could argue that he didn't want to play for a team that wasn't a contender.
I mean, yeah.
So that trade happens. And they start saying, and he starts saying, oh, he's not gonna show. And things happen. He never played for the Flyers. And then when he was designated to the AHL, he never reported to Lehigh Valley. Which is the AHL affiliate of the Flyers. Wow, this podcast has taken on an AHL theme. This is like the fourth time I brought up the AHL this year.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, we are in the offseason, so we are talking about moves that were made last season.
Yeah, and believe me, this isn't even the last time we're going to talk about the AHL when it comes to anything today. Actually, even when it comes to the Flyers, this isn't the last time we're going to talk about the AHL this section. So he never plays, and it doesn't look like he was going to report to camp either. And so his representation claims that he's recovering from a serious underlying injury, an injury that neither Colorado, Nashville, when they traded him at the start of the year, nor Philly were aware of at the time. And that's why he can't play. But was that injury bad enough that he still played through the full 60 some odd games in Colorado before getting traded? Well, it depends,
because people try to push off injuries for as long as possible, right?
Yeah, that's true, especially when they're playing on a contender like Colorado.
And like, if your wrist is hurting and like you bang your wrist into the board and it's a little bruised, you're like, oh, I'm fine. I mean, you saw this with me. I tried to fuck up my ankle pretty good.
You fought a battle with a curb and lost.
I didn't even fight. There was no battle, bro. I just lost.
You fought with gravity and you still lost.
I mean, it was a crumbling curb, to be fair.
Well, I mean, it has to hold up your massive ego, so I can't exactly blame you.
Hey. If anyone has the ego in this room, it's you.
Hey, that's right. That's fair. Hey, need I remind you what I have hanging on the wall? I say as I'm gesturing towards a replica Knights Cup banner.
Ugh, I hate when we record in your apartment.
Well, blame your dog.
That's fair.
Blame your dog.
My dog is rather barky, y'all.
But what really makes the story super interesting to me, and I actually literally just put two and two together on this one. So to put a bow on this Johansson thing, they have I think it's 60 or 90 days to appeal the decision, and it's going to go through arbitration because all contract disputes go through arbitration in the NHL. Probably,
I'm assuming that is a contract requirement.
I think it is. And my guess is if the arbiter can't find anything, maybe just maybe we'll get a lawsuit, which
we'll see.
But given that they probably have to go through an arbiter, I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it could because
things go real sideways.
Well, I mean, you go through into a mediator or an arbiter to try to get things done. Right. And a lot of times it works out, but there's a lot of times that it doesn't. And you end up with the next step in process and going through the process of the lawsuit.
But here's what gets really interesting. And this is something that I think the Flyers are going to have a really interesting time talking about as an organization. So how many points did the Flyers miss the playoffs by last year?
Yeah, one point, right?
One. on the they
Because it was like 3 games or 2 games going on at once.
they had a chance
between 3 teams.
Yeah, it was
that was a mess, man.
Philly was playing Washington on the last day of the year, and Detroit was playing Montreal on the last day of the year to decide the last wild card spot in the East.
And didn't Philadelphia, did they win or lose?
What they needed
before
to
or after? I don't
what
remember.
needed to happen was the Red Wings needed to not score any points, and the Flyers needed to beat Washington in regulation to make the playoffs. Over in Montreal, Detroit scored to tie the game with like 3 seconds to go, and ultimately won in a shootout. But by that point, it didn't matter because at the same time, so by Detroit scoring that goal, it officially eliminated Philly. But they didn't know that, and they pulled their goalie thinking they needed to win in regulation still, giving up an empty net goal and allowing Washington to clinch the playoffs by getting the regulation win that they needed to pull in ahead of Detroit, who was in Montreal at the time. But I bring this up because the margins were so close. What would have happened if they do find out that he wasn't truly hurt and he just didn't want to play for the Flyers? How do you deal with the fact that that one player may have been worth 1 extra point? May have been able to give the Flyers 1 extra point in 19 games.
I mean, I think looking back, you can't say the what ifs because...
But it's at least an argument you could make is he would have been in their middle 6.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that he would be guaranteed to score. I mean, it could have been the first 2 minutes of the game and he could have gone out and broke his collarbone like my brother did at one game.
And it's purely speculative. But you have to like think about these what ifs. Like, what if he had actually shown up and played?
I mean, yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can recover anything from it.
No. I don't think they can recover anything of it, but it's the same thing as like, I've done the same song and dance when I've been rehashing the Evgeny Dodonov situation in my head when it comes to Vegas and how that trade got canceled at the deadline 2 years ago or 3 seasons ago now. What would have happened if the Knights were able to trade this player away, reactivate the players off of IR? They only missed the playoffs by 2 points that year.
I mean, but a lot of people miss the playoffs by 1, 2, 3 points.
No, that's true, but it's the butterfly effect
I know.
These things, and I know there's functionally nothing that these teams can do.
You like to go down the rabbit hole, don't you?
I'm really good at it, yeah. I know there's functionally nothing these teams can do. There's nothing functionally the Flyers can do beyond what they're doing, which is terminating the guy's contract. But it's really interesting, and we're gonna see what they agree to do, what the arbiter says to do. And if the contract winds up getting terminated, and if it does get terminated, we'll find out how injured he actually was and if he's able to rejoin the league anytime soon.
Well, and I think that we're going to find that out regardless because we talked about the Milwaukee Admirals last
we're gonna come back to them.
Okay, cool.
We're gonna come back to them.
But we did talk about that last time, right?
Yeah, and the goalie.
Yeah, because I made the comment, but I made the comment about being branded a diva.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think that also applies in this situation?
It could.
Because especially if you're like, oh, well, because there's 2 ways that this goes down, right?
Right.
And regardless of the outcomes, there's 2 ways this goes down. He proves that there was some sort of underlying condition.
Right.
Or underlying something that was preventing him from playing and showing up.
Right.
That maybe he wanted to keep private and didn't want to disclose.
True.
Or you have the other one where he blatantly was lying and hiding because he didn't want to show up.
He didn't want to play for a team that wasn't going to make the playoffs, kind of thing.
But then, if that's the case, are you then blackballed from a lot of the bigger organizations because you're throwing a quote hissy fit?
That's a good point. I don't know. I really don't know.
It's one of those things where we're not going to know until this actually unfolds because again, we can speculate all we want, but we're not in the room.
No, we're not in the room, which is kind of interesting.
Which, I mean, it's fun to speculate, right? But I think it's also fun to note that all of this is speculation at some point.
Yeah, I mean, speculation is it's a talk show's favorite thing to do.
Oh, 100%. Like, we wouldn't be having a podcast if we didn't want to speculate on something.
Right.
That's basically what we're doing a lot is speculating on things or talking through news and saying what implication could this have.
Yeah, and I still have a hard time believing this is only one of 3 Flyer stories that have happened in the last 4 days since we recorded the last episode.
There's been a lot of movement. Like the second that we set the episode to come out, we're like, oh my God, all this stuff is happening.
Yeah,
we're going to have a packed episode.
We seriously considered having a special episode to just give ourselves a break.
There wasn't enough news.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff, but not a lot of groundbreaking stuff.
I shouldn't say that. There was a lot of news. There just wasn't enough of a conversation. But
so
anyways.
you want to lightning round the last two Flyers stories?
Well, we can lightning round at least the next one.
All right. Yesterday, the Flyers have a forward. His name's Travis Konechny. He had a pretty sizable part of his house burned down yesterday. It seems like everybody's okay, and it was just the stuff and the property that was damaged.
But what a fucking bummer.
Yeah, what a bad break. He's the Flyers' alternate captain. He's been there for years, and he had it was a property he owns.
Was it like his house or like a second property?
It might be like a beach house. I haven't really read the full article or anything. It's a home that he owns. I'm not sure if it's primary residence or a secondary residence, but the fact of the matter is it was significantly damaged by fire yesterday. So we hope that, and it seems like everyone's okay, and we hope that everything goes well.
Okay.
I'm sure he's got really good insurance. It's just a nightmare.
I really hope he does.
But it's a bit of a nightmare situation, and we wish him the best on that one.
Yeah.
And the final story for the Flyers is, remember last time in our last episode, I prefaced this episode by saying we weren't going to talk about Russians, and yet here I am talking about a Russian again.
Yet again. I mean, it's hard to not, because it's like the Finns, the Swedes, Russians, Canadians.
In America.
All have a substantial amount of players. I'm sure I'm missing more countries, but
Latvia, Denmark, Slovakia.
I said I was assuming that we're missing more countries, but moving on.
Anyway, the Flyers appear to be one of the front runners in the Yaroslav Askarov situation coming out of Nashville, and their goalie, which refuses to come to camp for the Milwaukee Admirals. I told you we were going to come back to the AHL.
Yes, you did.
I tried to tell you that we're getting back to it. We got back to it.
Well, you said that we were going to come back to Milwaukee specifically, and I was like, really?
Yep. And I did. I will even editorialize myself from the last podcast when I said nothing would probably be in on this situation. I said the Flyers didn't need to be in on this player because they had Fedotov and they had Ersson. But apparently I'm wrong, and I don't know what I'm talking about. So this
is why I try not to speculate about other teams' goalies.
I try.
You just really like goalies, I know.
I really do.
Yes, you do.
I really do. They're fun. But I think that puts a bow on the Flyers, mercifully. I think that's the longest consecutive time in my entire life I've spent talking about the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, I don't talk about them a lot.
They're there. They're cool.
They're there for me because like they're not in our division.
Not even in your conference.
Yeah, no, we're in the same conference. So we talk a lot more about the Western Conference than the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and with them over in the East, they just kind of exist. And
especially when you have like the Metropolitan Division.
It was nice to see them almost make the playoffs last year. It provided a good opportunity for me to watch hockey on the last night of the year when otherwise I wouldn't care. Mm-hmm. Like, I would have just spent that night studying.
You just like...
I like chaos, damn it. Sue me, I like chaos.
It's like how you're like, I'm going to spend the night studying. We both know you were not going to study that night.
Not a chance.
No.
Not a chance. I was simulcasting those games. I had them up on both screens.
Oh, so like what I was doing with the Olympics.
Yeah. I do that from time to time, especially when there's two games I want to watch. But for the first time since I believe episode 1 of this podcast, we actually get to take a deep dive into something I don't know very much about, but my co-host Aaron knows everything about.
I mean, I don't know that much, but there's not that much to know about PWHL right now.
But the PWHL had some stuff happen over the weekend.
Yes, it did.
With regards to one person.
Amanda Kessel. Apparently, she will not be reporting to PWHL Montreal after being taken in the recent draft.
I mean, yeah, was she like in the 3rd round or something?
Yeah, everyone thought that she was going to go in like the 1st or 2nd round.
Yeah, she was like the big piece of the draft too. Like,
yeah,
she was the one on the headlines.
She really did not go until, I want to say it was like the 3rd round or something.
I think it was the 3rd.
Which surprises me, but also there's not that many PWHL teams.
Yeah, well,
but also she was supposed to be like a big, but like there's not many PWHL teams at the moment, so. True. So she has instead decided that she is going to be the assistant general manager of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins?
Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins.
Yep. So they're the Pittsburgh affiliate.
Yep. It's a good gig.
It really is.
Gig.
Well, and I mean, this isn't even the first person that's gotten a gig with a blah, 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 AHL and NHL.
Yeah, no, like it's been it's been a good summer. It's been a good week for Amanda Kessel as a human.
Well, yeah, and she also got engaged this week.
Yeah, she got this job. She got engaged this week.
Not that that's super important.
Not that that's super important.
And like we would ever talk about any of the NHL players actually getting engaged. So
No.
I don't think it's really worth
mentioning
a lot. But it's been a good week for her.
In conjunction with being named the AGM of an AHL team and being a stone's throw away from the NHL front office.
Yeah.
It was a good week for Amanda Kessel.
But I mean, and Jessica Campbell also was named as the first female assistant coach in Seattle.
It has been a good summer for women's hockey. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got PWHL and the Walter Cup and Minnesota winning that.
That was an exciting 5-game series,
and then obviously Kessel and the AGM, and then Jessica Campbell and being the assistant coach in Seattle. I mean,
right?
Yeah, it's been a solid summer for women's hockey.
Okay, so I don't think you know this, Ian.
What did you write down that I didn't see?
So it's not anything that's new, and many people already actually know this information because it got leaked last year. Do you know what the PWHL names were going to be last year?
No.
Okay.
Were they going to be less stupid?
Oh God, no. They're terrible.
How could they be worse than?
So you already know the Minnesota Superior. That was what they were supposed to. That's what Minnesota was supposed to be.
Thank God, that's stupid.
They haven't filed a new trademark yet with any of their teams. So I really hope that they change the names for dear God, change the names.
I have a hard time going down to XL Energy Center, like walking down the hill, because I could walk there from where I live.
Yeah, we could walk there.
We could walk there. And I have a hard time saying, yeah, I'm gonna go down to XL. I'm gonna check out the Superiors game.
Like, that's just such a stupid name.
What are they? Like a G League basketball team?
Well,
nope,
also, okay,
hockey.
Yeah, we border Lake Superior, but Superior's in fucking Wisconsin. Like, across the border from Duluth, they're in fucking Wisconsin.
Woo!
Shout out to Superior, Wisconsin, but
dude,
yeah, there's no reason why we should be named the Minnesota Superior.
Call them the Northern Lights or something.
Oh, that'd be a good team name.
That'd be cool. Or here's an idea: maybe the North Stars.
But
boom, womp womp womp.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways,
what else is there?
All right, so guess what Toronto's name was going to be?
The Six.
The Toronto Torch.
Wait, is it the? Wait. I don't know my Canadian stuff very well, but maybe that's in reference to like the Eternal Flame, but that's in Ottawa. That's in Ottawa.
You want to know what the Ottawa PWHL team was going to be called?
Please tell me it was something less stupid.
No. The Ottawa Alert.
What?
Yeah.
What are they to be alerted of? The fact that they don't know how to play? Didn't they come in last?
No, that was New York.
What's their stupid name?
The New York Sound.
That's stupid. That's a WNBA team. What are they doing?
Okay.
Are we talking about like what sound are they talking about in New York? Like the sound is in a body of water, or the sound of like taxis and shit?
I'm pretty sure the first one.
But what sound? What sound? Because the Seattle Sound at least had the Puget Sound.
You're just okay. We have 2 more teams, by the way.
Oh God.
All right, you ready for the next one?
No.
So, Montreal.
Okay.
Was supposed to be the Montreal Echo. You really just dropped your microphone.
You mean the Expos, like the baseball team,
no,
or the Echo as in the sound of their stadium because nobody attended Montreal games?
Like Echo.
Well, it makes sense given that nobody went to their games.
All right, and one name left, Boston. Do you want to gander a do you want to shoot out a guess?
Clam bakes?
The Boston Wicked. I realize the Wicked is literally a saying out on the East Coast. I've heard it multiple times because I used to live out there for a year.
That's stupid.
But oh my God, everyone's like, I don't mind Boston Wicked. And you ask a Boston person, they're like, that is the stupidest name I have ever heard.
Here's my question. And I don't know if you know the answer to this. Was it the PWHL management that made these decisions, or was it the teams that made these decisions?
I'm sure. I don't know.
Because if it's the PWHL's office making that decision, they need to fire whoever came up with those and get a better creative director.
That was my assumption. It came from PWHL.
Because I cannot for the life of me assume that any organization based in Minnesota would allow themselves to be called the Superiors. Mostly
Also,
because that's stupid. Because no sports team in Minnesota is superior in anything.
Well, except for PWHL Minnesota, but I still don't want to be called the Superiors.
So,
like that just sucks.
Wait a second. Weren't they supposed to come out with like actual team names this summer, or did that get pushed back?
That got pushed back to September.
Well, I mean, we're standing here in the end of August.
Yeah, so it was supposed to be August. They got pushed back to September. So we'll see if it's beginning of September or end of September.
If it's Superiors, I'm going to buy a jersey just to make fun of it.
I really hope we don't have that name, and I'm hoping what they do is that they have all the names like secretly like ready to go, and they're just going to drop it so that it doesn't get leaked again.
Drop it like it's hot. I hope they change the colors. Like, I'm not opposed to Minnesota and being purple.
I don't think that they're going to,
but I think there's just better. There's better options that the team could do.
I don't think they're going to change the colors. However, what I will say is that it's now not just going to be like purple jerseys or white jerseys, because we'll actually have an actual like
crest
logo, something besides Minnesota or besides New York. And I'm just sick. I'm just really tired of saying PWHL and then insert city name here.
Yeah.
Because that's a mouthful.
Minnesota. Yeah.
PWHL.
Yeah.
You're killing me over here. You're killing me over here.
That's the point.
So yeah, but going off that, what do you think a good name would be besides Minnesota something?
I mean, if they could get the North Stars IP out of Dallas,
they're definitely not going to.
It'd be nice if they could.
They won't. And if they do, the Wild are all over it anyways.
I mean, Aurora would be good. I mean,
we already have a team, and I believe that they are our soccer team. Yeah,
which soccer team?
The women's soccer team.
I
wasn't aware. Minnesota had a soccer team? A women's soccer team?
All it does... Well, here's what I have to say. Even if they go with the Superiors, it's still the second stupidest sports team name in the entire state. And that goes to the MN United FC Loons.
I like the Loons.
I cannot, with a straight face, say, oh, be sure, don't go down that street. There's a Loons game going on.
I love that, though. It's quintessentially Minnesota.
It is quintessentially Minnesota, but that is what makes it so stupid, because I cannot...
and LA Galaxy is any better?
Or LAFC? Hey, Houston Dynamo at least sounds cool.
Well, it's not even like we're the Loons. It's we're Minnesota United FC.
Hey, I mean...
So it's MFUFC. Okay. And we just happen to have our mascot be a Loon.
Yeah, I mean, then you've got Austin FC, which is, they don't have a mascot. Their mascot is literally the color green.
But that's my point, is that, like, I think I'm kind of segueing back to PWHL.
Please let it not be the Superiors. Please, God, no.
I really don't want it to be. I think Boston, like, I feel like something...
Just the Boston Harbors?
I mean, not really that, but, like, stop. I mean, I think Toronto Torch is, like, probably the best one.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, and that's not saying a lot, though.
The Montreal Echo.
I wanted to tell you earlier, but I thought that having you hear them for the first time on the podcast might be a better choice.
Good choice, because I would have been making fun of them for the last 2 days. Granted, I may have a better option. I may have had better time to brainstorm, ideas for alternate names. But at the same time, why?
Yeah, so if you think these names are not great, make sure to at PWHL on Twitter.
At the PWHL. Fix your names. They suck.
Yeah, so I'm really, really hoping, because Bauer came into with their whole partnership, so I'm hoping that Bauer at least tells them that, all right, man, that's kind of stupid, but we'll do it, I guess. And maybe they'll be like, maybe not.
It's like they looked at the women's soccer league that's becoming a big thing.
It's a bet.
And it was like the old meme of, hey, can I copy your homework? Sure, but change it a little bit.
I mean, yeah, wasn't like the women's softball thing that just, the softball league that just happened. isn't their contract also based off of the PWHL contract, and they
Yeah.
just like renegotiate their whole contract.
Yep.
So I'm sure, and everyone's speculating that PWHL will probably follow suit in the next couple of years.
Yeah, probably.
So there'll probably be updates on that at some point in the next year or so.
Yeah. But I think that's all unfortunately, I think that's all the PWHL stuff that we have.
For now, we'll see.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of news coming hard and fast on that, especially when they announce the names and then when the games get going in October, November.
I don't know. They haven't released a schedule yet either. So I think they're just going to do all that at once.
Hey, are they going to have a booth at the State Fair?
No, I don't think so.
Damn.
I know the Wild do.
Yeah, we'll be swinging by that whenever we go in a few weeks.
I'm excited.
Or next week.
Next week, because I wanted. I literally took a screenshot of where
go get your koozie. And
yes.
your cheap Adidas jerseys because they got to get rid of them.
Yeah, no.
I'm going to go off on my Fanatics rant another day because we have other things we have to get to and we only got about 10 minutes left to get to them.
15, but yeah.
All right. So let's move back to the NHL. The Vancouver Canucks. Mm-hmm. They're totally screwed again.
That doesn't surprise me.
They're totally screwed again.
Moving on.
Well, this is where we're going.
Yep.
They're looking for another goalie because their prized goalie, Thatcher Demko, doesn't look like he's going to be ready for the start of the year. Doesn't even look like he's going to be ready in calendar year 2024. May not even be ready until the playoffs of next season because he's still rehabbing the knee injury he sustained during the playoffs in the first round.
That really sucks.
It does really suck. Now, they'll be okay because they've got Artur Silovs, the guy who took Edmonton to 6 games I think it was the second round. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a good goalie, but he's not Demko.
Well, I mean, does this also kind of impact what you think they're going to do and where they're going to finish in the division this year?
A little bit. For how Demko was out for small chunks of last year, Vancouver was a exceedingly mid team when he was out. And he was out 2 years ago when they missed the playoffs. Because, again, without him, they're kind of an exceedingly mid team.
Do you think that they're going to try to go for the Milwaukee Admirals?
No, they're probably not
AHL?
going to go for Askarov. They can't afford him. They don't have anything Nashville would want for him anyway.
I mean, yeah, but I guess draft picks and stuff. But
Maybe.
if Nashville doesn't want to deal with him,
What's really weird about this whole...
great chance to unload him.
Yeah, no kidding. What's really weird about this Demko situation is it's been reported that Vancouver was concerned about his rehab status at the draft 2 months ago.
So then why didn't they start considering making moves or something? Because here's the thing, too. If they place him on LTIR...
They have the money, but a lot of the good goalies have gone off the board already.
Well, yeah, because they didn't plan.
I mean, if I was Vancouver, I would have been looking at, Samsonov and just moving him from Toronto to Western Canada.
I mean, honestly, like anything that they can do at this point, they're not going to be the team that they were last year if they cannot figure out how to keep the goals or keep the pucks out of the net.
No, and like it's weird. Like I think what's going on is they like wanted to see if he could rehab his injury without getting surgery, and it's taking forever.
The thing is, though, is that surgeries have recovery times. So
True, they do
all of the... Like, any time that you're waiting for an injury to heal, you have some time.
Right.
Like, regardless of if you get surgery or not, like, it could be months.
No, that makes sense, but it's just it's still kind of a strange situation. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to, talk down on Vancouver, but guys, what are you doing? And please suck to make the Knights have an easier time making the playoffs.
Well,
next
and
year.
you're not a huge fan of Vancouver.
No, I'm really not, especially because of this next bit. And I'm going to dip my toes back into Vegas land because 2 things happened.
Do it, because I don't think we have any Minnesota news to cover right now.
Other than Fleury's helmets. His helmet's paint scheme's getting leaked.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't take video, but that was sick.
We're working on that, though. We're gonna get on that eventually.
I hope so.
We're gonna figure that out. I'm going to figure that out sometime soon.
Anyways.
So the Knights have signed a professional tryout contract for Tanner Pearson, who used to be a member of the Canucks. He was a pretty good player, good middle six kind of guy. But he's only played like 20 games in the last 2 years due to a shockingly mishandled, and these aren't my quotes, these are actual quotes, a shockingly mishandled wrist injury. Quinn Hughes in Vancouver has said that the wrist injury was massively mismanaged and it caused him to get 5 surgeries for a injury that should have only taken 1 surgery to fix. So this guy, he was like a 20 goal scorer in 5 years in a row. Good guy. It's a very low risk thing for the Knights to do, especially because we're trying to rebuild our depth after losing most of it to free agency.
I mean, I don't think you guys lost depth. I think you guys lost players that in a couple of years probably would have been on the downside anyways.
True, but this is a good opportunity to, try and rebuild the bottom six. He's at least got potential, and because it's a PTO, there's basically no risk to the organization. We'll have him around for camp, and if he does good, we might sign him to a two-way deal, have him play in Henderson a little bit, and if he plays really, really well, we might just put him on the opening night roster, put him on the taxi squad or something, have him around just in case people get hurt. But he's a good veteran guy who has at least got some potential to be a good player. I hope for the best because his career has gotten massively screwed over by this wrist injury that should have been dealt with.
Yeah, and if he rehabs it correctly, he can probably be back to the way that he was playing before.
I mean, obviously he's rehabbed it well enough because he signed a PTO, and
it's also like when you sign with a team, you now have access to their entire staff.
Yeah, and apparently the Knights have a very good medical staff.
I believe that.
Despite, our LTIR usage.
Well, but you also can't control when you get injured in games. So it's kind of a moot point at that point.
True. And the last thing to come out of Vegas is now that the players are starting to come back into town from their vacations, we're about 2 weeks away from the opening of training camp.
Oh, thank God.
I think we're 30-something days away from the start of the preseason. So
yeah, I think I saw something the Minnesota Wild posted a couple days back about it being 40-some days. So I'm like,
I think it's like 48 days until the start of the regular season and 36 until the start of the preseason or something.
Let's go. I need my hockey back.
At the time of recording, obviously. But with all these players coming back, you also get them talking to the journalists again. And Mark Stone gave quite possibly the hardest quote of the offseason. And I haven't read it to you.
I was going to say, I'm assuming I'm getting to hear this.
I want to get your live reaction to it.
Okay.
And there will be a follow-up question.
Okay.
Quote, as I'm older, I have realized that people are going to put a bullseye on our back because they want to see us fail. We haven't failed too much in our history. People want to see the Golden Knights crash and burn. Mark Stone told Knights reporter and contributor Gary Lawless. So, who are the people that want to see the Knights crash and burn? And I'm looking dramatically northwards towards the city of Edmonton.
I mean, I think that, honestly... Okay, so this is what I think. I'm not going to speculate on who wants to see you guys crash and burn, but I'm going to explain.
Everyone.
I'm going to explain why the answer is everyone.
That's what I thought.
I'm going to explain why the answer is everyone.
Go for it.
So you come in and you do an NHL draft.
Yippee!
Like an expansion draft.
It was a good draft.
I'm still mad when you guys took
Hey. Blame.
I'm so mad.
Blame. I think it was Bill Guerin at the time.
Probably.
Who managed it. Because this was 2017. Hey, blame your GM, whether it was Guerin or whether it was the guy before him, for making a deal to protect Matt fucking Dumba.
Holla would have been so much better.
Eric Holla and Alex Tuck.
I don't care about the second one. I care about the first one.
Alex Tuck is the reason we have Jack Eichel now.
That's fine, but anyway, I couldn't care less. You would
have rather had Holla instead of Dumba.
Yes, I would have.
But anyway.
Anyways,
back to your point.
Sorry, he's one of my favorite players. So I think it started with that, and I think that you guys kind of came out guns blazing.
Yeah, because we were good.
Which is not a bad. No, you guys. You guys were able to take basically mid-tier players. Because let's be real, people were able to protect a certain amount of players, and they protected either people that they were going to basically grow into the organization or their stars.
Yeah.
Like those were the two options that they had, and they only had 5 or 6.
Well, there were a couple of players that we got in that expansion draft that you would consider to be good players, like good players straight up. Marc-Andre Fleury obviously being one of them.
No, but that's my point is that, you can only protect so many people.
Yeah. I really think our core for that one was Fleury, Neal out of Nashville, David Perron out of St. Louis, and Eric Holla out of Minnesota. Those were the 4 players that we expected to be good. And then obviously you had Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchessault out of Florida, and William Karlsson, who was nobody, and then he scored 43 goals.
Yeah, but my point is so with those expansion drafts, you can only protect so many players. You really can't.
Right.
Like you don't have a choice.
Right.
You can protect the people that you're paying the most money to. You can protect the people that you're growing into the organization. A lot of times you can't protect all of the categories, all of the people in both categories. You just can't. And so for that, I think that a lot of people got really annoyed and mad.
Well, yeah, but at the end of the day, the team was still exceedingly mid on paper.
But can I explain?
Sure.
You guys then came out guns blazing.
Yep.
And your GM and coaches knew what they were doing.
Yeah, and
I think a lot of people got very upset because here they are tracking teams that have been around 50 years, 20 years, 30 years since the inception of the NHL. Like you have teams like the Bruins who've been around since like what, the 20s?
Since forever.
Yeah, so like since almost whatever.
Since literally forever. They're part of the original six.
Since the original six. So I think you get a lot of people that were very upset by that because it's, why is a team winning that's only 6 years old and my team can't win after so many years? Like we should be better at this than they are.
We won more playoff series in our first year as a team than the Leafs have won since 2004.
But that's my point, is that that's why the whole entire league hates you. And then put onto it the controversy, the quote controversy of LTIRs.
Yeah.
And they feel like you guys are cheating.
Tampa did it first.
It doesn't matter who did it first. You guys are doing it now, and people actively hate you because
Tampa did it first.
Can I finish?
Sure.
My point is that people still hate you because it doesn't matter who did it first. Right now, you guys are doing it, and you guys are succeeding. So they see you as cheating the system, even though you're not.
Close the loopholes, then. The collective bargaining agreement allows for it. Other teams are just scared to do it.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't allow it, or that they should close the loopholes. I'm just saying that a lot of people don't look at how finances work in the NHL.
Again, I wrote an entire op-ed on this subject.
I know you did. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that public perception doesn't like that.
No, it does not.
It's like Biden's approval rating.
That's for the other podcast. Save that one for the other show.
Okay.
Save it for the other show.
We'll plug that when we get going on that one.
We'll plug it later. But no, I can see where the quote's coming from. Mm-hmm. I get where it's coming from, which is interesting and introspective in that nature.
Well, and I think all the things that I said,
they're accurate.
There's some truth to all of it.
There's an air of truth to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Or else it wouldn't be said. But yeah, no, I can see why the rest of the league doesn't like us very much. But all I have to say to that is tough shit. But anyway, I think we got one more quick bullet.
Do we really quickly want to go through the CCM?
Yeah,
stuff?
one real quick bullet before we hit the road.
This
for
is
the
a
weekend.
long one today.
It was a good one today. There was a lot of stuff that happened.
There's a lot of good things to talk about.
Hey, the
today.
longer we have to sit here and talk, the more news there was, which means it was a good week. Close out the week, this was coming down the pipeline as of yesterday. Mm-hmm. Rick Westhead, who, if
I've seen the tweet too.
If you're deep into the hockey weeds, you know this guy's a good journalist. He's the guy who reported on the Blackhawks saga, and he was one of the people who broke the Hockey Canada scandal last year. He's reported that it looks like CCM is about to sell. Looks like CCM is about to sell to a new mega corporation conglomerate,
like a equity,
ownership. Yeah, private equity firm.
Yes. And it looks like True and Bauer could follow suit.
Are going to follow suit within a year. CCM was last sold for like $110 million a few years ago. It's like probably 5-10 years ago now. And Bauer are doing things that would indicate that they're getting ready to sell. They're revitalizing their Easton Synergy line to relaunch it later this year. And True, after just purchasing the rights to Lefebvre for their goalie equipment, they're also in a position where they would probably sell to another private equity firm.
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday, and I made 2 comments.
One,
maybe it was just one out loud, but I have 2 comments about this. So one is True acquired Lefebvre.
Yes.
And I think that Lefebvre and CCM had a partnership. I'm not sure if they owned. I don't think they owned them.
Yeah, it was a partnership. Hell, if you run to your goalie bag now
I know.
and look at the cuff of your glove, it's CCM powered by Lefebvre.
Because I have a slightly older model of my glove.
It's a 4.9, so it's a few years old.
That's fine. It's
good.
It's
good
functionally no different for me.
But whatever.
I think that was a move so that the company would be more valuable so that they could sell.
Yeah.
And I think that Bauer is trying to up their lines and up their things. so that they can sell to private equity firms. Now, I think that private equity firms now, depending on who gets these companies,
Yep.
I think they're going to try to up the price because they're going to try to squeeze the most amount of money that they can.
Suck, by the way.
Well, who knows? We'll see.
I
what
hope
the
they
future
don't,
holds.
because as a consumer that's getting back into hockey, yeah, no.
I mean, I'm on a goalie Facebook group. I love the group I'm in. But someone's like, the gear goalie gear is not going to be affected as much
I hope not.
because you have the Bryans and the Vaughns
Oh, yeah, the ones that aren't. Yeah.
that are just exclusively
right.
goalie.
Yeah, and then I know there are rumblings of other private companies coming up in the pipeline in the goalie market in particular that are going to be like starting up this in the next few years that are like working. Not.
Okay.
They're getting around to it. It's more just rumblings on Twitter and on Facebook groups and on Reddit and stuff. It's a lot of people saying, I'm going to start a hockey company. And I'll believe it when I see it. But if those do come to fruition, maybe that will help stem the tide a little bit.
Here's the thing. I don't think a lot of those are going to come to fruition because I think a lot of those people are like, fuck it, I'm going to start it. And then they get into it and they're
Yeah.
like, no, fuck no. You good over there?
Help.
Apparently something happened. I'm not sure what.
I went to stand up and I stepped on my headphone cable and ripped them off my head at the speed of light.
All right. Well, it seems like a you issue.
One moment, please. Oh my God, these are not good. Okay, we're good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, but that's all I got to say about it is that I think that a lot of people are going to put their money where their mouth is, and I don't think that's actually going to happen.
We'll see.
But that's all we got for today. So thanks for sticking with us.
Who knows? Maybe by Monday we'll have even more crazy stuff.
I hope so. I hope this weekend and into next week is very productive and fruitful.
Hey, at the very least, it gets us a few days closer to the start of camp, start of preseason,
God.
start of regular season, and much more entertaining conversations than just talking about the news.
Yep. And as always, thank you for listening to our podcast. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe.
Comment down below if you want to yell at me for not knowing how headphones work, apparently. Or if you want to disagree with any and all things that I say about liking the Golden Knights, I'm totally here to have a comment war with you or address you on the podcast because that's what happens when I have the microphone and you don't.
Dear Lord, we're all in trouble here.
Oh, goodness. I'm as petty as they come.
So as always,
Thanks for watching, guys.
and we'll see you next time.